Okay, so we're gonna do the pinch pot demo first. I made a little pot for you to look at on the side here. So this has not been fired, it's pre-fired. It's called greenware, which is before you biscuit, and it's all dry. This one has a little spoon, a little belly pot, and a little lid. Never pick up a lid from the handle when it's not fired because the handle can break off. But I'm going to set these aside so I can show you the pinch pot. So this little guy has a couple of feet. He's pretty smooth. The inside of the pot is also pretty smooth. I spent some time on it. So that's an example of a pinch pot. I'm just going to rebuild it using wet clay. I just took a chunk of clay, and now the first step is to smooth it into a ball. You want to learn how to smooth these little edges and corners because you're going to need to do that in the pot later once it's a pot and not a ball. Just kind of gently scoot the clay around using the pad of your fingers, not anywhere near nails because that can put nicks into it. You can use the palm of your hand too to make a ball, and cupping it a little bit. And once it's pretty smooth, it doesn't need to be perfect, but you do want to start with a mostly smooth ball of clay. You can pick a side to put the hole in. So look at this one and decide that my hole is going to be here. And I just really picked that because it's slightly flat on that side, so it's easier. So now I'm going to put the hole in. This used the whole finger. And you can tell that I'm rotating this clay. So what I'm doing is I'm applying pressure and scooting my finger and rotating the pot. It's kind of a similar idea to when you're on the wheel and the piece is twisting around on the wheel and you're touching all sides of it because it's spinning around. You want to have pretty good equal pressure on all sides so you don't get a lopsided pot. And now I'm pinching and scooting my thumb up, but my hand is pretty much staying the same way. So I'm not pulling the whole thing. I'm just scooping my thumb, and then I'm turning the pot, scoop up. This is giving me some pretty good smooth internal walls. So here you can see a little bit of cracking. This just happens when the clay starts to get a little dry. I have this little slip puddle here that's the clay is dissolving and being formed into slip, but I also have the finger water, which in your little guidebook says to have a little bowl of water because of this exact thing. You don't want to drench your pot, but you want to smooth those edges so they don't get too cracked out. So you want to take some time. This process may take you a little bit of time. Like I've done a lot of these, so when we're in live time, it's going to take me less minutes than it will take you probably. But if it doesn't, then that's cool too. So you start with kind of a cylinder bowl shape. And one common thing that I've seen a lot of people doing is when they start to pinch like this, they pull out on the top. So you end up getting this like cup. But in order to have a shape like this, we kind of want to prevent us from having to cut and pinch the top back in. So we want to do a lot of our pinching from the bottom. Kind of leave the rim skinny. I'm doing a lot of work on the bottom. I'd recommend when you're learning how to make pinch pots to just make a bunch. You can sit there in front of the TV or listen to an audio book, or sit on your front porch like I do and watch the people walk by. Let's make a bunch. They're kind of cute. So once the walls are about 1/4 inch wide, you can go a little thinner than that, but you don't want to have the walls of your clay thicker because then there will be too much trapped moisture for when you fire it and it could explode. So now I still have this nice narrow rim, and I want to kind of narrow it even more. So I'm going to take a little bit of water in this hand, and I'm going to start pinching in from the outside. So I'm reversing what I was just doing. So I'm holding my inside finger still and pinching from the outside finger. And then I want to go in and I want to push out those walls. So you can see these cracks. That's because I'm applying pressure from the inside. This is totally fine. You do want to smooth those cracks. See, they're getting kind of big, so you don't want them to be too big. So you just want to take your water, smooth them in. Occasionally you'll have to do a little patch if your clay is drying out too fast. Just get a little bit of this slip goop, rub it on there. This clay is really a plasticky clay. It's very soft and smooth. So it does tend to dry out pretty fast. So I have to keep adding moisture to it. And just experiment with pushing from the inside and pushing from the outside. See what happens. Use the back of your nail to smooth out these cracks. Your nails are fantastic tools, even when they're not long. They're great when they're short too. You don't want them too long because then you'll end up putting pretty big cracks or divots in your pots on accident. Okay. Pinch pots generally have kind of a bag-like structure, just the nature. They're very soft. You can make hard ones, hard edge ones too. But it's usually something you do after you've started this little ball shape. Okay, so now I have this edge here. It's not very even, and I would like an even edge. And my walls of my pot are pretty thin already, so I don't need to pull up anymore. So I'm going to use my string tool. But you could also use a needle tool, which is this little guy. You could also use, if your clay is a little drier, a trimming tool. I'll show you what I mean by that. First, I'll demonstrate with the wire tool. You basically just floss off the top layer. Because you're not on a pottery wheel, this is not going to be exact, but it will be pretty nice still. And pinch pots aren't really necessarily supposed to be exact, although you can make them look like you threw them on a pot, on a wheel, excuse me. They're meant for a more organic shape. Okay, so now we take a little water and we start smoothing out that top that we just trimmed a little bit of. So there we see we have a pretty nice smooth top. It's a little uneven, which I kind of did on purpose so I could demonstrate the other needle tool trimming technique. And while I'm doing this, I'm exerting a little bit of pressure because I'm actually giving the pot a bottom right now. So I'm twisting and pushing down, but not too much to collapse the walls. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you the needle tool. So I'm holding the needle tool in one spot, like this, and I'm turning the pot around on the table. This means that my little needle tool here is trimming off the same height of the top. Now, because I'm using pretty wet clay right now, it will take me a little while, a couple turns to get through because I can't push too hard because it will collapse the wall. So I'm just kind of like going through. You can do this with a little knife too. I just prefer the needle tools because I feel like it gives me a lot of control. Anyways, I'm taking a lot off one side because my pot here was uneven. It's super common because you're using your fingers to pinch and push and everything. It would be kind of weird actually if they were exact. It'd be a robot, which is cool, I guess. Now we have this little thing set it aside. You never want to throw away your excess clay because you can always reuse it, even when it's dry. Okay, that's pretty good. It's pretty even. So now I have my little pinch pot, and this is how you make a deeper pinch pot. You can make a flat one too. So there's the little bowl. You can still see some of the cracks here. You could leave it like this because maybe you like that organic texture, that earthy stone-like texture. Or you could take some really fine slip or some water And you can just kind of like go in with your thumb or finger or whatever and just kind of smooth it out. It's getting a little bit more slip. The slip kind of fills in these little cracks. You want to use the slip, not just water, because water will just, you know, maybe smooth the superficial layer, like the very top, but it won't fill in those cracks, so they might appear later as it's drying. But you could leave them there. I like smooth things because I was taught actually by a couple of Japanese masters, and although there's many different techniques in Japan regarding pottery, some of them not what you might think of like that fine china, but some more rustic pieces too. But the ones that I had were very much like porcelain, fine porcelain, smooth walls, very delicate walls kind of people. So I always kind of tend to make really smooth things. And it took me a little while to be like totally okay with hand building even, because I just like, it's almost impossible to get a perfect hand built piece. And that's, I've come to know, kind of the charm of the hand built piece. It's a little rustic. It looks handmade, which separates it from something you could get at like, you know, Kohl's or I don't know, where you buy stuff. Marshall's cool, but it doesn't really look handmade. Okay, and then you want to set it aside for a while before adding any details like a handle or feet. And the reason for that is if I were to try to turn this around and attach feet right now, the walls would buckle and it would shrink down. And then the feet would be absorbed into the pot. So I can turn this upside down and set it aside for later to add anything. I can also keep this as a little cup. It's totally ready. It's fine. One thing that you haven't probably seen me do is you can take a moment to sign this, because I'm not going to put any feet on this one. So, because I did on this one and it was cool, but I actually don't really like feet. So I'm going to sign it, and I just do a little like N-S. Hey, that's good. Okay, that's demo number 1, how to make a pinch pot.